I'm Lorelei Treelor, and this is my Psychology 101 signature assignment. I'll be starting in regards to the biopsychosocial perspective. I was born in Seattle, Washington in 2000 to Tarina and Scott Treelor. We moved to Idaho in 2004, soon after my eldest brother was born. After 3 years, we moved to our current home in Kuna. The environment I grew up in has always been very peaceful, as Kuna is a very safe place to live. Because of this, I was able to make lots of local friends and go out with my family a lot, allowing for new sensory opportunities when I was young. I've always been raised in a church environment. This allowed for another safe environment to learn and grow in. I attended weekly clubs, services, and during 1st, 2nd, and 4th grade, school. It was during this time that I met my best friend for years to come. As life went on, her importance in my life increased. There's 5 siblings, their ages ranging from 14 to 2, 3 brothers and 1 sister. The spacing between them ensured that my mom always had a new baby to take care of. On top of this, my parents decided to foster a 14-year-old girl in 2010 when I was 9. She was the second youngest of 5 girls and came from an abusive home. This led to her having a whole world of issues I didn't understand or recognize. At the time, I was elated, as I had always fantasized about having an older sister to be best friends with. Things seemed to go great for the first year as she tried really hard to be part of the family, but as time went on, she gave up in trying and grew distant, all but ignoring the sisterly duties I felt she had. My efforts towards our relationship increased until I eventually gave up. I stopped craving her affection and redirected my unfulfilled expectations onto my mother, turning my sister into a rival for affection of sorts. I had grown jealous of her for constantly sopping up my parents' time and attention. This, combined with my new little brother and almost no time for me, I didn't know how to process these feelings at the time and ignored them for years, turning them into an inferiority complex that would rear its ugly head later in life. I was in the 4th of Erikson stages, competence versus inferiority. During the latter years of this stage, I started to stumble as my accomplishments weren't getting me the attention I craved. I started to withdraw. That, combined with the beginning of my struggle with school and my newfound unsupervised access to the internet, led to me being more secretive with my parents over time. As I placed less and less worth in the real world and more in the digital world, video games became the center of my focus. I started public school at Kuna Middle School. I started about a fourth of the way through the year and never ended up finishing. I was introduced to many experiences I wouldn't have if I had continued homeschool. That year had its ups and downs, and it's difficult to figure out whether or not I would be better off without it. I was exposed to the brash world of hormonal tweens. I learned many things that weren't just limited to those provided on the syllabus. I met lots of friends outside of my normal sphere. This influenced me in a lot of negative ways as I lost the track I was following. I started to become the sort of person that I had tried to avoid. Here I was bullied for the first time. I didn't identify it at first, but eventually broke down crying to my mom about not wanting to go to school. I dropped out and never finished 8th grade. I also experienced sexual harassment on numerous occasions. Despite these occurrences, I was able to handle the pain that came with them, although I suspect that any anger that may have been attached was repressed as a coping mechanism. A short time after I turned 14, I got depression. There was never a specific reason. It just happened one day and remained for months. There was a short bout of time where things seemed fine, but I was thrown back in a much worse condition. It was especially bad during 2015. I excluded myself from my family, didn't say much either, a large difference from my previous nonstop talking. I spent as much time away from people as possible, as much time reading, watching, and shoving my face in my phone. I ended up so walled off that it was almost a year before I asked for help. I started therapy and 2 types of antidepressants that work to artificially produce serotonin. It took a long time for things to actually start looking up. The therapist I was assigned, I grew very attached to. She filled a role I had been needing for a long at the time, and she helped me to face problems with my parents, who were distant. She also helped me process through my issues with gender expression and sexual identity. Summer was about a fight between my parents and I. There's nothing we could agree on, and they weren't happy with the choices I was making or my self-expression. I ended up losing the online community of friends I had built up over time because of this. I also lost all my internet privileges, forcing me out of whatever comfort zones I had at the time. I became very angry, although I now realize that it was for the better. The beginning of 2017 was the beginning of a year of recovery, for my damaged relationships, for my own mind, for my own bad choices. In years previous, I didn't have proper coping mechanisms and chose self-harm as an alternative. It never became anything serious, but it alarmed my parents when they found out. Last summer, my best friend of 8 years announced that she was moving 2 hours downstate to attend college. Now, at the time, I was also going to college, while still remaining in high school. It was fine at first. We spent time together before she left, and she already lived 40 minutes away, so it's not like I could see her every day. But as time went on, her departure became painful. I couldn't see her on Sunday, or youth group on Wednesday. She couldn't come to my birthday. She couldn't attend winter camp, the same winter camp we had gone to together for the past 3 years. I became overly worried about her, wanting to go to her dorm to surprise her but being unable to. I wanted to stay with her. I was worried lots at first about how she could handle herself. I wanted to become a motherly housewife type figure, to cook and clean and cuddle. Looking back now, I was likely projecting, pushing my negative qualities onto someone else. Thinking Now, things became incredibly lonely. So much of my life was spent being her friend that when she left, I wasn't sure what to do. She's moved on from the move, found a boyfriend, she's real happy, but I haven't moved on. A few years prior, my first therapist, the one I was deeply attached to, quit her job. It was nothing personal, she just had to work elsewhere. She worked really hard to keep me as a patient, but regardless of everything we tried, she moved on, but I couldn't. I got a new therapist. She was nice, but she had medical issues and I was transferred to a new therapist again. She's alright, but I'm still hung up on my first one. I left so much relying on her that when I left, it pulled the rug out from under my feet. Now that same rug is acting as my blindfold. Last year, towards the end of summer, my church's youth leader had an announcement. He would be leaving to start his own church. This was a deadly blow for me. Most of my recovery process involved going to his sermons, so much of my faith and love of the church had been built around him. When he left, it left a large hole in my sense of self and my faith that I can't seem to fill. Just 3 weeks ago, I lost my job. Childcare at my church. I had the job for 9 months when the boss pulled me aside and said I should look for work elsewhere. Her reasoning is that I had been too rough with the kids. She wanted me to reevaluate whether or not childcare was right for me. This was a severe blow to my sense of self, to my self-esteem. Just a day prior, I was thinking about how aimless I felt and how the job gave me a sense of belonging. I thought as long as I remained there, things would be fine. And then I lose the job. My sense of belonging, security, it threw me into a spiral of emotion. I couldn't properly move past it and ended up growing sick in the meantime. I placed my sense of worth on fiction previously, and when I lost interest in that, I felt lost. At the time, the job was the only thing really giving me a leg to stand on. But it fulfilled multiple things I felt I needed. It gave me a sense of motherly purpose, as I've realized that I have a complex where I crave to be a motherly figure. one who provides support, physical and emotional reassurance, and the care required, an ideal concept of a mother. But I simultaneously want to be cared for by the same woman I was trying to become. My own mother has enough to deal with, so I feel guilty asking her for more affection than I'm dealt. My main coping mechanism is regression. Whether I'm sick, tired, depressed, or overall fine, reverting to a more infantile state has always been a second nature. During this period, I was unable to work on my self-esteem as my need for belonging wasn't properly dealt with. Currently, I have temporarily dealt with the issue. I'm learning to come to terms with the people I love departing from the same path as me. I'm learning to move forward. I'm attempting to place my sense of self in spending time with those around me and the work I create rather than the artificial. I'm planning on continuing college to gain a master's in psychology and a bachelor in arts. I then want to work in the psychology field in regards to mental illness and teen-related work, potentially going into some branch of art therapy. According to the Big Five personality test, my high scores in agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness suggest I'd be a good fit for the task.